Welcome to Masters of Product Management, a show that gives you real-world techniques and cutting-edge strategies to learn, apply, and succeed in product management. Now, here's the master himself, Stephen Haines.
Welcome back, everybody. So lately, I've been speaking with lots of product leaders from a huge landscape of industries. And as some of you may know, I'm always trying to study what separates well-run companies from others and how product management practices contribute to business success. This informal benchmarking is just one of the methods used by my firm, Sequent Learning Networks, to keep on top of some of those best practices and to track trends over time. Now, there's this interesting series of events I need to tell you about. So there's a product executive from a Fortune 100 company. He happened to have been visiting one of his clients. And while he was at his client, he happened to have noticed my book, The Product Manager's Desk Reference, in the office of his client. And he said, "Oh, I know the author of that book." So that afternoon, I got an email from this guy to tell me about this. And he hooked me up with his client. The client's name is Jake Licht. And Jake is the COO and VP of Baden Sports. And he's involved in making basketballs and other athletic balls. And what was interesting in terms of even the conversation of Jake's evolution of product management in this company was that he was a manager of mobile solutions at Boeing. Boeing happens to be one of my favorite companies since I just happen to be an aviation buff. At any rate, as Jake and I were talking, I realized he had some really, really great views on product management. And because of these perspectives on the aerospace industry that he brought in and how he adapted some of the key practices, I thought it would be a really good idea to have a chat with him. So I've invited Jake to the show to share his experience. So welcome, Jake.
Thank you. Honored to be here, Stephen.
I am so happy. So really, let's just spell it out. What made you go from a big aerospace company to a sporting goods company?
Well, the really simple answer is family. I had been at Baden for about 10 years before I married my now wife, and just so happened to marry into a family that was running a sporting goods business. Her grandfather had started Baden Sports almost 40 years prior. And I had studied software engineering and had been in the aerospace industry for my entire career to that point. And so I really didn't see a transition, a likely transition happening where I would make the jump over. But after getting to know the family more and getting to just hear about Baden Sports and the challenges that they were facing and the opportunities that they were pursuing, when they needed a new operations leader, through just a lot of conversation, I saw really that a lot of the training I had at Boeing, really around the areas of program management, product management, and just general organizational management, that those would be transferable skills and something that Baden Sports could really use to pursue the things that they were trying to pursue.
That's a great background for being a product leader. So tell us a little bit about what happened. How did you get started? What are the things you noticed? And what were the things that you saw needed to get done?
Well, what I saw in the company was, a lot of strength, primarily in the sales area. I mean, we sell millions and millions of balls every year, but it's also ultimately the product has to be strong and has to be in line with that sales strength in order for you to deliver to your customers a product that's really going to make them happy and allow your brand to continue to grow. Mm-hmm. And what I saw was a company that had very strong functional silos. So that, like I said, the sales department was very strong and very much, sort of a strong force within the company. But supply chain was a very segmented area. Product development was very segmented, and as well as product management. And so what I saw was a real opportunity to bring those different groups, those different functional silos together to create better products and approach how we manage those products in the market.
But how do you see, here's the issue, right? So you went from a very large company that I'm sure was functionally divided to a company that was probably functionally divided as you're describing, had all these different departments. And then you have some kind of product management. Some people are doing it, but how do you actually introduce this construct especially from a cross-functional point of view when you have a very sales-oriented culture, or when you have people who may take leadership roles in development or other operational areas. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think, it was largely a cultural thing. And I saw it as a cultural challenge in a lot of ways. But, the first thing that I saw was that we had a single product manager for the entire company. And
the entire company.
The entire company.
For how many products?
Well over 100 products.
Oh my goodness, right.
And really, probably more than 10 major product lines or even, product portfolios. And so the role of the product manager, I think, was really ill-defined.
You're listening to Masters of Product Management with Stephen Haines from Sequent Learning Networks, sequentlearning.com.
So, Jake, we've talked about this cross-functional adoption, but I got to tell you, when we go into companies and leaders are trying to get product management to take root, you get a lot of pushback. And I think you've talked a little bit about that pushback, or alluded to it at least. Now, certainly you do get some resistance, but what are some of the things that you did to sort of demonstrate to these other people from these different departments that what it was that you were doing had value, so that they would want to follow and go along instead of focusing on their own agendas?
Yeah, I think the number one thing that we did right off the bat was on the more product development side of the product management spectrum, we set up a weekly product development meeting with the full cross-functional team.
Wow.
And we set up a version of of your new product development process up on a big wall in our product development area. And so we made sure it was visible to everybody, the different steps that we wanted to make sure that we hit on in for every new product that we were developing, and that those touch points crossed all of these given teams. So, for instance, one of them was the preliminary sales and marketing plan that's done fairly in that product development process. And putting that responsibility on those sales and marketing teams, they realize, we're still really going to be involved in the product development process. In fact, we're going to be involved probably more than ever, and we're going to really get to define early on what this product is going to do in the market, what it's going to take to have a successful launch. And that information is going to get communicated to the product developers so that they're aware of it from the very early stages of product development, to make sure that they're developing the product in a way that's going to meet what sales and marketing believe is going to succeed in the market. So it didn't take long. I think those meetings were so critical, because I think the fear at first of this, sort of more central role of the product manager and taking some things away from the functional departments, that resistance was, those walls kind of came down quickly when I think those different functional departments saw firsthand how involved they were going to continue to be throughout the process, and that together we were going to launch better products.
Yeah. It's really interesting. As I'm listening to what you're saying, one of the things I talk about is the fact that everybody in the company is really in product management. They just don't want to acknowledge that. And when everybody's buying into the whole thing, you certainly get people moving in the right direction. And I think that establishes some points of leadership. Do you, other than some of these things these great successes that you did have, were there some key takeaways? And I'm going to ask you to do a couple of things. From a takeaway point of view, is you've learned a bunch of things in your current role, but I've actually entitled this podcast, I think I'm calling it From Aerospace to Basketballs. I think it's kind of funny. Maybe people will like it. But what are some of the things that you took in from the big company, the big, heavy departments and lots of agendas, into this company in an environment where you had similar types of things, but you had to streamline things and move things apace? What were some of those key things that you learned about?
Well, I think that, ultimately the same things that have created repeatable success for a company the size of Boeing for over 100 years now are, scaled down. They're the same things that create repeatable success in a small organization. And I think that what I saw, I think in really big companies, you tend to see maybe more bureaucracy that slows down, slows things down so much that you just get all those layers, and decision making can get slowed down. at the other end of the spectrum, in a small company, I think it's easy to think, oh, we move quickly. We have to be dynamic. We have to move, react quickly to market changes because we're small and we have to be scrappy. But being small and scrappy is no excuse for putting strong processes in place, no matter at what scale they are. And that if you're going to really be able to continue to grow in a healthy way as a small company or small to medium sized company, that approaching product management, product development with a degree of process focus is what's going to allow you to continue to scale and create repeatable success. And I think that that is the thing that if I think that I brought value to Baden from what I learned at Boeing, it was that. It was teaching each of my key leaders that, listen, if there is a problem that you're seeing over and over, don't try to fix that one problem. Look at what the systemic problem is and establish a process for eliminating that from ever, being something that happens again. So it's really that process mentality that I think that big companies have that small companies tend to think is something that they'll leave to the big companies. And I just think that if you can find a way to scale, things like this new product development process is just one example, down to be right size for your organization, it is going to help you act like the big guys.
That's great. That's great. This is extremely insightful. And I got to thank you because those are some great insights. And for me, if there's anything I've ever learned about product management, which is the business management of products, it's this, that it's dynamic, it's fluid, it's interconnected. And as you just said, it's systemic. And any business can be successful on the merits of its products and other things, but eventually, every successful business needs product management. So I hope you picked up a few tidbits and some insights from my chat with Jake today, and I hope that you'll tune in next time. Thanks for listening.
This has been Masters of Product Management with Stephen Haines, but it doesn't end there. Just visit sequentlearning.com to take advantage of free tools and resources and subscribe to the show. That way, you'll never miss an episode. It's all there at sequentlearning.com. We'll talk to you next time on Masters of Product Management. Learn, apply, and succeed. Sequentlearning.com.